Hi again. Before I introduce this next person, I have to introduce this person who has been sitting here next to me all this time. And in the fact that I've been a little bit nervous here, I've failed to introduce him. This is my partner in service, my husband, Marcos. Some of you do know him, but for those of you who do not, this is my husband, Marcos Gonzalez. So I just needed to take care of that situation. So next, I have the distinct honor to introduce my friend, who I've known a long time. We go back quite a long time. When I first met him, he was a Lion in the Rosemount Lions, and I believe he was a zone chair and maybe in my dad's cabinet. But at any rate, this is past international director Mike Melenda, and he will be introducing our guest for this convention, international director Gary Brown. So Mike is currently a member of the Hastings Rivertown Lions, and like I said, is a past international director. And he'll be introducing international director Gary Brown, who is a second-year international director from Cape Vincent, New York. Him and his wife, Lion Barb. So here's Mike Melenda.
Thank you, District Governor Gina. First of all, as a tail twister for the Hastings Rivertown Lions Club, I am fining you $1 for forgetting to introduce Lion Marcos earlier. It is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you my friend, International Director Gary Brown, who is actually in his third year as an International Director because of the pandemic. A couple of things you don't know and things that I've learned about him is that we have a fair amount in common besides being inducted into Lions Clubs in 1984. One of the other things I've learned is just as I can look across from downtown Hastings and see Wisconsin, in Cape Vincent, New York, ID Gary can look over to Wolf Island, which is in Ontario. That is how close he is to the Canadian border. He lives at the end of the St. Lawrence Seaway, has a lighthouse in his neighborhood, and if you ever look for Cape Vincent on a map, you'll see how close Wolf Island is. A couple of things you should know about him. With his wife, Barbara, he likes to spend his free time hiking in the Adirondack Mountains, which probably explains why he's so thin, and Barbara is in such good shape. Secondly, he's a golfer who once won, believe this or not, $100 from Arnold Palmer in a long drive contest.
True.
But I think the most important thing that you should know about him is when he was a young Lion, he was in a club in Pennsylvania that always sold Christmas trees, as many of our clubs did. And the clubs wanted to get rid of that. And Lion Gary had always run a couple of golf tournaments, and he suggested, you know, this isn't working. We're aging out. I'm the only one that's working with the trees. Let's do something else, like have a golf tournament. And he was roundly shut down by his club because he had a new idea and we had always done it a different way, and he was ready to quit. And after he thought about it for a little bit, he got a call from his sponsor, a dentist, who told him, you know, we're going to do that golf tournament. We're going to make it work. And that has turned out to be a large and continuing fundraiser for his club, for his former club, and he's doing a wonderful job at it. To show you the confidence that LCI has in International Director Gary, he's a member of the executive committee, which helps the international presidents and the entire board of directors set policies throughout the world of Lionism. So it is my distinct honor and privilege to give you now International Director Gary Brown.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate that. And I want to back up for a second. And District Governor Gina, I don't think you'll be able to see this, but I carry this everywhere I go. That's my mother's 4-leaf clover. She was an Irish woman named Frances Haley. So your Irish blessing, I had to kind of stop and catch my breath. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. As I mentioned last night in the tailgate, I feel very close to MD5. 3 years. I've been on the board 3 years. I've been honored to be asked to come to Minnesota. 5M7 the first year, 5M10 Bemidji last year, and Babe the Blue Ox and I are really good friends now. And I'm really honored to be here with you today. Creating harmony through service. What a way to approach a year that we never thought would end up like this, or a year that we ever would have to deal with. Who knew? But one of the things we have to be aware of in all of that is that LCI was formed in 1917, as you know. And this is not our first pandemic. We've been through the Spanish flu. We survived it. And in the midst of when we were being formed, the country was also in the midst of World War I. We've been down some hard roads before. We can do this, and we are doing it, as was just exemplified by the service journey that was shown for everything that's been done in 5M6 so far this year. This year is not over. One of the things we certainly need to always do is to back up and look at where we've been and what we've accomplished and celebrate our history, celebrate our service, and celebrate ourselves. Not a one of us has to be on this call this morning. If I were lucky, I'd be somewhere ice fishing right now with Bruce Beck. But Bruce Beck and I are both here. We're not out on the lake anywhere fishing and enjoying an adult beverage. It's a testament to all of us that we've made that choice. Your first Vice President, Brian Sheehan, as you all know, is very heavily connected to the NAMI process, North American Membership Initiative. And in that process, one of the things that they use a lot is called the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So let's talk for a couple of minutes about those things. But one of the things that I like to remind everybody is that that program was put together for all of us to analyze districts. Let me submit to you that it's a good thing that we use to analyze our clubs, our zones, our multiple districts, and even ourselves as Lions. So what are some of our strengths right now? We're obviously the largest and I think the best international service organization. We have 104 years under our belt to prove that. We have very strong leadership and we continue to produce very strong leadership. And we're willing to look at ourselves and to learn. Those are strengths. What are some of our weaknesses? I know that in upstate New York, we have some folks like you do in Minnesota who don't even have ready access to the internet. So they're frozen by COVID. Some of the clubs are. And we also understand that because of that, one of the things we really should concentrate on is our need to serve one another. There's nothing wrong with serving one another as Lions and clubs. We need to teach, learn, and share, not only how to use Zoom, but to help people get over the fear that Zoom is an impossibility for them to master. I, like you, I think, hope that this is not our total future. I think Zoom will be a tool going forward, but I, like everybody on this call, look very forward someday to be able to come back and meet with you in person, shake your hand, give you a hug, and not have to worry about what happens afterwards. So what are some of the opportunities that we have? The opportunities are very simple. We have the opportunity to learn from ourselves, learn from our past, and learn from ourselves at this point in time. So what have we done to do that? After about 102 years, we decided it was probably a pretty good idea to have our first woman president. It took a while, but we got there. And we have to recognize the Lioness program. I know that's been a bone of contention in a lot of places, but Lioness have provided service just like the Lions have for years. And those who are converting, we welcome with open arms and thank you for everything that you've done in the past and look forward to working with you in the future. We have to embrace younger members. If we don't, we will get run over by the future. Thank God we are doing that. That's another opportunity that we're taking advantage of at this point. And we have to be wide open to new ways to serve and new ways to share ideas and new ways to meet. We must embrace diversity. Just like it took us a long, long time to have our first female president, we are about to have our first African-American president, and it took almost 104 years. Think about that in an organization that is in more than 200 countries around the world, and whose last new constitutional area 8, was Africa. It's time, and I'm here to tell you that Lion Doug will be a fabulous president. One of the things that we also have as an opportunity is we put Leo Lions on the board as liaisons to sit in these committee meetings with us. I've had the opportunity now to sit with 2 of them and listen to what they have to say. Listen is the key. When I used to teach communications in our LLI here in New York, 46% of your daily communication is listening. We have to get better at it, and we have to understand that, like my grandmother used to say, I was given 2 ears for a reason and only 1 mouth. What are our threats? We cannot ignore reality. We cannot ignore the following, and this I hope would pay very close attention to. There is conflict within our clubs, and we are having a tough time in a lot of instances finding the hot button that turns on a new member. That is more than 70% of the reasons that we hear in exit surveys, one of those 2 or both, that they leave within the first 2 years. We can fix that, but that's our responsibility to fix that. Is it all bad news? No. Those of us out on the street certainly know that it's not bad news. The LCI board is trying to do what we can to make it easier to survive COVID with the things that we've done with dues. We did it for 6 months and we just extended it till the end of this year. And one of the things that we are very, very fortunate about right now is that we have some very realistic, committed executive officers. And we have 3 or 4 of them in a row. We haven't always had that. And our current president, President Choi, has asked us to adopt an attitude of servant leadership. What does that simply mean? It's my job as your international director to ask you what I can do to make your job easier. And that goes straight on down the line. One of the things I like about working on the executive committee with this current group of executive officers, first, second, and third vice president, is that they've all bought into the idea that we needed to flip the pyramid. Some of you may have seen a few years ago that there was a pyramid that came out where the clubs were on the bottom and it went up, and on the top was LCI. And a past council chair in New York hit the next slide in his PowerPoint and it was upside down. It was the other way around. That's exactly the way things need to be. The clubs, you as Lions on the street, are LCI. The rest of us help you run it, but we are not it. You are. That's who everybody sees every day. And that's where the impression from the public comes from. These executive officers understand that and will operate in that manner. Here's some statistics which I know are very boring, but in this instance, I think maybe are also very enlightening. If you were to take the same period last year from July to the end of November, and then this year, July to the end of November, club reporting is up 19%. New members up 16%, same period year over year. Service activities, not a surprise, up 30%, and new clubs up 29%. Are we out of the woods? Is this all over? Is everything better? No. Is the trend encouraging? It most certainly is to me, and I hope that it is to you too. One of the ways we're accomplishing that is a lot of the new clubs, about half, are specialty clubs. So one of these initiatives is getting through to somebody who's saying, I really can identify with that, and that's what I'd like to do. This is a good time for me to say to you, and I've heard this in some of my travels on the road, why do you expect us to do something in all of those initiatives? That's a lot to ask. Here's the answer. We don't. If you can, please do. But if you're really in a club that is passionate about diabetes, do that. If you're passionate about hunger, do that. You have to be passionate to last. We understand it. And we're not asking you to do some small service project in every one of these initiatives just because. Find your passion and go with that. We've obviously done that. We have served more than 200 million people this year. And we did that. It's not that we talked about it. It's not that it was something that we wanted to do. We actually accomplished that. How do we stay relevant? I tell this story from time to time. There's a company that you all knew. At one time was the largest retailer in the world. It was the largest publisher in the world. And it had the tallest building in the world. And it happened to be in the same city where LCI is headquartered. It was Sears. And back in the 80s, Sears got into a joint partnership, a joint venture with IBM. And they actually got involved with software programs, and it was called Prodigy. And the idea behind Prodigy was you could use that as software to shop online. The Sears board said, probably nobody will ever do that. And they backed out of that partnership. I don't know if Sears is still open in Minneapolis or anywhere else in Minnesota, but everywhere I go, there's a for lease sign in the front window. We can't do that. Leaders are born where we are right now as an organization. Our future is in your hands. And we have to understand that LCI is clubs and it's lions. It's not board members and administrators and officers. It's you. Past director Mike talked to you a little bit about my past dentist, who's the guy who saved my lion's bacon, and I think about it every day. Mentoring is something that I am very, very passionate about because Lion Angelo DiPiazza was my mentor. He's the guy who stood up in front of the club and said, the kids got a good idea. We can't continue to do these Christmas trees. We're losing money. And physically, we can't do it anymore. He stuck his neck out as a charter member of the Monroeville, Pennsylvania Lions Club and said, he might only be 33, but he's ambitious. He's got a decent idea. We owe it to him to back him. We did. He did. I just played in the 29th annual Angelo DiPiazza golf tournament at the Monroeville Lions Club. And we used to make about $8,000 on our Christmas trees. We sold 900 trees. It was a ton of work. We had to pay for the trees up front and hope we didn't lose a lot of those trees. The tournament grosses about $35,000 to $40,000 a year. It's only because Angelo stood up for me and took me out in the hall after the meeting and said, I believe in you and I'll back you. That's why I'm here. I ask you as a Lion, especially, in the environment that we're in right now. Find somebody and be their Angelo Di Piazza. It's the only way that we'll grow, and we will grow out of this as long as we keep the faith and we have the attitude and we're willing to find our replacement and nurture them and not feel threatened in the process. I want to thank you on behalf of the board of directors, the Lions of Multiple District 20. We have a lot in common. 35 below zero is nothing new to me. 4 feet of snow is nothing new to me. A lot of wind off the water is nothing new to me. Maybe that makes us all a little harder than the rest. I'm not sure. I also want to thank you for the silent person who's not on this call, but is the reason for this call and the reason for this convention. And that's the kid who can see better because of what you've done. Or the family that had a dinner last night that wouldn't potentially have had that dinner if it weren't for you. I want to thank you because you, like me, even though I maybe could be out walleye fishing with Bruce Beck right now, have chosen to be here. It's a choice. And I'm honored that you make that choice. You've made a difference in the world, and I certainly want to thank you for that. And I want to close with something that I just found this morning, of all things. There's a past international director up in Massachusetts, past international director John Hoyle, and his wife is in a facility for dementia now, and he's got a lot of time in his hands, and he does a lot on Facebook. I think it keeps him busy, and it gives him a connection. But I opened this morning, and when I knew I was going to come on here and do this, I thought it was absolutely appropriate. So thank you to John Hoyle, and I don't know whose quote it is, but here's what John put on Facebook this morning. Life is like a book. Some chapters are sad, some are happy, and some are exciting. But if you never turn the page, you will never know what the next chapter holds. My fellow Lions of 5M6 and multiple District 5, Lion Barbara and I are very honored that you asked us to be your guests. And I never like to say goodbye and thank you because my father always chewed me out for that. What he always said when he left or when I left his house was, see you later. Thank you so very much for everything that you do. I'm honored to be part of your convention, and I'm honored to be in line with you. Thank you so much.